You know, when I was studying economics at the University of Chicago with Frank Knight and later Milton Friedman, they made a big distinction between risk and uncertainty. Risk you can measure. That's why we have actuaries and insurance companies. And uncertainty you can't measure. And I think we're moving into a strong period of uncertainty, which means that we have to be flexible as companies. In fact, I find that markets change faster than marketing. That is, marketing itself may be delaying things from changing because marketing hasn't moved as with the market changes. And so I'm very interested in the question of how do we live with uncertainty. Now, I do say there's actually a need to live with three kinds of things that are happening. One is the business cycle. We have partial answers to that because companies know what they should do when you go down, the economy goes down. There's a playbook for that, and when the economy goes up, there's a playbook. The second factor is what we call disruption, disruptive change. And that is very different than the business cycle. That means that some things are happening where a whole industry is at risk. Because someone else is coming along doing things much cheaper and more efficiently. And it can change the whole nature of an industry. So we have to live with the cycle and disruptive change. But the third factor, which I worked on in my book called Chaotix, is what we call turbulence. And I really think that we're going to, as people in companies, feel many more surprises, shocks, problems. So when in the old days, Monday was a normal day, Tuesday was normal, Wednesday maybe a little bump that we had to solve by Thursday, and Friday was normal again. It's possible that the workday will be a bump, with and part of that is due to the interconnectedness of nations now, the supply chains that keep them all waiting for goods to come from distant places, and so how do you live with the turbulence? And in the book Chaotix, I suggest three things that are necessary. One, and I think companies are some companies are doing these things. The first is collect business intelligence, so you know what's happening. But I want to even extend that to a higher level. Build an early warning system where you can read the signs of change and even prepare for these changes that you see. The second thing is we used to call contingency planning, where since things are uncertain, you say, I better have a contingency plan. Now, I'd like to generalize that to a broader idea called scenario planning. Scenario planning is an exercise in imagining a whole scenario when, let's say, everything went bad. What would it do to you? What would you do about it if that happened? But you might as well compensate by also thinking about a scenario if things got really good and new opportunities presented themselves, and how would you attack that? So scenario planning is a way to deal with what we call undetectable turbulence. The detectable type you'll see with early warning systems, but the undetectable type comes through your imagination. And I do believe that a company would benefit from setting aside a day or two of managers at the top level or middle management level thinking about extreme things that might happen and what they would do about it. I think they would end up with a whole new set of ideas. And the third feature that I would promote is more flexible planning and response to changes. Everything is tied to budgets, and I think you're going to have to change budgets. You don't change your objectives normally when there's inclement weather and changes, but you do have to be able to adjust targets and other things so that you will reach your basic objectives. I would add this, that in a rapidly changing marketplace, you're going to be very tied to seeing what's happening now and working on today and managing the present. It's very important. It may even take all your time. In fact, we know that the normal marketing department, which I call really a downstream marketing department, has the objective of pushing out as much of the goods and services as possible. They're with the idea of clearing inventory and getting things sold. No time is left to think about how to grow in other ways, how to actually change the parameters of your business or find a new business model. And to do that, I think you need a separate group. We could call it a separate marketing department, but much smaller than the horsepower that you find in the downstream department. And we'll call it an upstream marketing group. Maybe 3 to 5 people. Maybe they're very steeped in social science or some deeper disciplines that are more superficially represented in the downstream department. And they're asked to imagine where things are going. They haven't gone there yet, but in the next 3 to 5 years, where are they going and what plans could we lay for those eventualities so we're going to be successful as they tend to take place. And we know that some companies have done this anyways. Sometimes it's a single individual who says, oh, you're not going to be bogged down by what's happening today. You better think about the kitchen of tomorrow and how it's going to look and how big it is, and give us some ideas about how we can fit into that picture.